this point, to ask Mr. Dennis Ryan, invite him to the podium. He is the son of a deceased Pearl Harbor survivor, who also served as general counsel for the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association.
Thank you and good morning. Admiral Chesak and the USS Slater, members of the Albany County Veterans Bureau, elected officials, veterans, our hosts of this magnificent post, honored guests, and of course our beloved Pearl Harbor survivors. As a proud son of the greatest generation, I'm honored to be here today, and I'm humbled to have been asked to share a few thoughts with you on this significant day in our nation's history. And in honor of all who have served our country, especially those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, my comments, as always, will be historically correct as opposed to politically correct. And my message is equally straightforward. We will not forget. 70 years ago today, my father, Joe Ryan, was a 24-year-old sailor on board the USS Argonne, moored at 1010 dock. He just finished breakfast and walked out onto the deck into the beautiful sunshine on that Sunday morning, gazing across the harbor to Battleship Row, when all of a sudden an airplane hangar blew up on Ford Island. And then from behind came the roar of dive bombers, heading straight for the battle wagons, dropping their torpedoes in well-practiced formation with devastating results. In an instant, that peaceful paradise was transformed into a flaming hell on earth. During the first wave of the attack, my dad helped a Marine man a .50 caliber machine gun, loading ammo belts and doing their best to fight back as the Japanese plane rained down bombs, torpedoes, and heavy fire. After the first wave, he and some other men commandeered a captain's gig, which is a 30-foot motor launch used to ferry the captain back and forth from the ships. And they went out to Battleship Row and pulled men from the burning waters of the Arizona, the West Virginia. Horribly burned casualties, horrible injuries, death and destruction everywhere. And then the second wave hit, and they were right in the middle of the harbor. But they kept going, just like every other soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine. There was no time to think, only to take action as best they could. After the attack, they spent the rest of the day pulling survivors from the burning waters of Battleship Row. But they were helpless, trying to save those trapped and tapping on the capsized hull of the Oklahoma. Back home, my mother was a nurse at the Leonard Hospital in Troy. On December 8th, she got flowers from Dad, only to learn that those flowers were ordered on December 5th. The day after the attack, Dad and his shipmates were issued 2 postcards, one for your mother, one for your wife or girlfriend. And the postcard was pretty straightforward. It said, "Nothing is to be written on this, just make a check mark or else the censors will destroy it." And it basically says, "I am well, I'm in the hospital." And in these days when it's nothing to make a phone call on a cell phone to Baghdad, my mother waited 3 weeks before receiving this postcard on Christmas Eve to know that her husband was indeed alive. Dad then became an original crew member of the USS Denver, which was a light cruiser that operated in the South Pacific for the duration of the war. 11 major sea battles, torpedoed 800 miles behind enemy lines, but stayed afloat and went back for more. Again, just like every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine. And while we're talking about the war, we must also recognize the sacrifices everyone made back on the home front to support the effort. Mom became head nurse at the Waterville Arsenal, where it was 12-hour duty 7 days a week under General Gillespie. America's gun factory delivered the goods, as did every person and every enterprise engaged in the war effort all across this magnificent country. Back in the South Pacific, Dad was on the bridge of the Denver during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and he got to see the payback at Surigao Straits, where the U.S. Navy crossed the T and trapped the Jap Southern Fleet, where the West Virginia, the Maryland, the Tennessee, the California, the battle wagons that had been damaged or sunk at Pearl had the opportunity to get in their licks. As luck would have it, Dad was home on leave in New York on August 1945 when the ships in the harbor all started blasting their signals in Morse code. V, V, VJ. Dad started the war in Pearl Harbor, and he was in Times Square on VJ Day. I grew up listening to these stories, and they'd always end with the same sad comment from Dad about those who were killed at Pearl Harbor. We were just kids, he'd say, and those poor guys never had a chance to come home, to grow up, to get married, to have a family, to see how wonderful life is here in the United States. Don't ever forget them, he'd say. Keep America alert. Well, Dad went on to become a lawyer and a district attorney, and he proudly served as general counsel of the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association, whose motto is, "Remember Pearl Harbor, keep America alert." 10 years ago today, I stood on the USS Arizona Memorial with my father and my brother. I saw the black tears of oil seeping up from her sunken hull, where 1,177 men lay entombed. It was an incredible experience to attend that 60th anniversary. And you know, there were some lighthearted moments too. Every night after the day's activities, there were two distinct groups in the bar. There were the veterans raising hell, having a big time, and then there was us kids going, geez, are we ever going to get home, man? And then CNN decided to interview Dad live from Pearl Harbor. And this poor rookie reporter asked the question that all of us in our family knew the answer to. So, Mr. Ryan, how scared were you during the attack? The answer was always the same. The shoulders would go straight back, the eyes would go forward. Scared? Hell, we weren't scared. We were all pissed off. Those Jap bastards are trying to kill us. You can take the man out of the Navy, but you can't take the Navy out of the man. I didn't know Jap bastards was two separate words until the 5th grade. Joe Ryan lived a good long life, and he died at age 90, 4 years ago today, on Pearl Harbor Day. I've kept the family membership in the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association active, and just last month I received the news that I knew was going to be coming sooner or later in the Pearl Harbor Gram, which is the newsletter of the association. And the headline with a beautiful picture of sunset over Pearl says, "Pearl Harbor commemorates the 70th anniversary as the survivors call it a day." The Pearl Harbor Survivors Association, facing the dwindling membership, took matters into their own hands and have made the decision to stand down and finish their business as of the end of this year. The assets of the association will be turned over to the Pacific War Museum in the Pacific at Pearl Harbor. And this is why this wonderful gathering is so important today and why I'm so happy to be here, just to share a few thoughts. It's critically important that you, our beloved survivors, know that we know your sacrifices, that we will not forget the lives lost at Pearl Harbor. To you survivors with us today and those who have gone before you, we pledge you, we will always remember Pearl Harbor. We will always keep America alert. And so thank you for your service. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryan.